Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at, well, a really fascinating paper. It's called The Era of Experience, authored by David Silver and Richard S. Sutton.
Yeah, it's quite something. It really maps out what they see as a fundamental turning point for AI development.
Right, a big shift. Because for a while now, it feels like everything's been about training AI, these big language models, LLMs, on just massive amounts of human text and data.
Exactly. That's been the dominant approach. And I mean, it's worked incredibly well in many ways.
Oh, absolutely. We see LLMs writing code, drafting emails, even helping with things like medical notes or legal briefs. The general capabilities are pretty astounding.
No doubt. But that's where this paper throws down a bit of a gauntlet. Silver and Sutton argue that basically relying only on human-generated data, well, it might be hitting a ceiling.
A ceiling. How so?
Especially, they argue, in really complex areas. Think cutting-edge science, advanced mathematics, genuine breakthroughs.
Okay, but why? I mean, isn't there still tons of human knowledge out there?
Well, yes, but the paper points out that the highest quality, the truly novel, frontier-pushing human data in these specific complex fields, it's actually quite finite, and a lot of it. It's likely already been digested by the biggest models.
Oh, okay. So you can't really train an AI to discover something fundamentally new if no human has ever written it down or understood it yet.
Precisely. You're limited by the boundary of existing human understanding if that's your only source material.
So if we're hitting that boundary, where do Silver and Sutton suggest AI goes next?
And that brings us right to the title, The Era of Experience. The core idea is shifting from AI learning primarily from static human data sets to AI agents learning mostly from their own experience.
Experience, like interacting with the world.
Exactly. Ongoing interaction with an environment, whether it's simulated or real, they generate their own data through these interactions. It's much more dynamic.
So it's learning on the fly, constantly updating itself based on what happens.
That's the idea, a continuous loop. Act, observe, learn, refine. The experience itself becomes the primary teacher.
The paper uses alpha proof as a key example, right? The Math Olympiad AI.
Yeah, it's a great case study they highlight. AlphaProof was initially trained on, I think, about 100,000 human-written mathematical proofs. Solid data set.
Okay, seems reasonable.
But the real leap happened afterwards. Through reinforcement learning, interacting with a formal proof system, it generated, get this, 100 million more proofs itself.
Whoa. 100 million. Okay, that's a
my
staggering difference. And it wasn't just the volume. This self-generated experience allowed it to explore mathematical ideas, find connections, and develop proofs that simply weren't in the original human data. It went beyond the human knowledge it started with.
It found things humans hadn't.
That's the implication. Novel solutions. The paper also mentions DeepSeek doing similar things in informal math, using reinforcement learning to develop problem-solving strategies autonomously, just based on the right incentives.
So the central claim is clear. This experiential learning is the path to unlocking truly new AI capabilities.
That's the core contention, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig into what defines this era of experience. The paper lays out a few key characteristics. First up, streams of experience. What does that mean compared to now?
Well, think about how we often interact with, say, a chatbot. It's usually question, answer, maybe a short follow-up, but isolated interactions.
Right, each conversation feels kind of separate.
Streams of experience suggest something different, more like, like how we live.
Yeah.
A continuous flow of interaction over long periods. The AI agent learns and adapts across this entire stream, carrying information forward, building context over time.
So it's not just short bursts, but like lifelong learning for the AI.
Kind of, yeah. It enables long-term goals. Actions taken now aren't just for an immediate response, but could be aiming for a benefit way down the line.
Can you give an example?
The paper suggests things like a health agent using your wearable data over months or years to give truly personalized long-term advice, or an education agent that tracks your progress over an entire course, adapting its teaching style.
Or even a science agent.
Exactly. Pursuing a big goal, say, finding a new material or reducing CO2 through potentially years of simulated or real experiments and observations. It's a very different timescale.
Definitely feels more substantial. Okay, the next characteristic, richly grounded actions and observations. How's that different?
Right now, especially with LLMs, interaction is heavily based on language, on text, input text, output text.
Yeah, dialogue seems key.
But think about natural intelligence animals, humans. It's deeply tied to acting in the world, using sensors, controlling limbs. Physical interaction.
So moving beyond just talking.
Yes. The paper notes that LLMs are starting to use tools called APIs, which is a step. But initially, that was often based on humans showing them how. The trend, though, is towards more autonomy.
Like AI using software the way we do.
Yeah, interacting with user interfaces, controlling applications. But the bigger picture is AI taking autonomous actions, maybe even in the physical world via digital controls, running experiments, controlling robots, analyzing sensor data directly.
Actively doing things to learn, not just reading about them.
Precisely. Gathering its own grounded observations through action, it opens up exploration beyond human physical limits.
Okay, that leads nicely into the third point. Rewards grounded in environmental experience. This sounds like a big shift from how AI is often trained now.
It really is. A lot of current AI, especially LLMs, fine-tuned for helpfulness or safety, relies heavily on human feedback. Humans rate the AI's outputs, this is good, this is bad.
RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Exactly. But the paper argues this has a key limitation. It biases the AI towards what humans already know or think is good. It might prevent the AI from discovering a completely novel, maybe counterintuitive, but ultimately better strategy that humans wouldn't have recognized or rewarded.
Because we wouldn't know to ask for it or wouldn't think it was possible.
Right. So grounded rewards are different. They come directly from the environment itself. They're objective measures of the actual consequences of the AI's actions.
Okay, like what? Give me some concrete examples.
Sure. For that health agent we mentioned, instead of a human saying good advice, the grounded reward might be the user's actual measured heart rate going down or their sleep quality improving based on sensor data.
Ah, direct results.
Or for an education AI, the reward is the student's actual score on a test. For a climate AI, it's the measured reduction in CO2 levels. For a trading AI, it's the actual profit or loss.
So real-world outcomes are the reward signal.
Yes. The paper points out these signals are abundant. Costs, error rates, health metrics, climate data, profit, exam results. Tons of possibilities. Even subjective human feedback like, this tastes good or I feel better, can be a grounded signal reflecting a real state change.
And the paper suggests these can be combined flexibly.
Yeah, that's a neat idea. You could have a reward function, maybe a neural net itself, that learns to combine various grounded signals based on a user's high-level goal.
So if I tell my AI, help me get fitter,
It might learn a reward function that weighs signals like low resting heart rate, more steps, better sleep scores, based on what actually correlates with improved fitness over time for you.
and maybe I could even tweak how it weighs those things.
Potentially, yeah. The paper mentions bi-level optimization. The AI learns to achieve the reward, but also the system learns to refine the reward function itself based on ongoing feedback and outcomes to better capture the user's true intent. It's learning guided by results.
Fascinating. Okay, the final characteristic, planning and reasoning about experience. We hear a lot about LM reasoning now. How does this build on that?
Well, the paper acknowledges the progress, things like chain of thought, where LLMs try to show their work mimicking human step-by-step logic.
Right, breaking down problems.
But it asks a deeper question. Is human language, human-style reasoning actually the best or only way to think? Are there potentially more powerful, maybe non-human-like forms of reasoning?
Think what?
Maybe symbolic manipulation, maybe something more distributed or continuous? The paper suggests self-learning systems, through experience, might actually discover or evolve these more efficient ways of thinking. AlphaProof's mathematical reasoning might be an early hint it wasn't just translating human textbook methods.
So not just imitating human thought, but finding new ways to think.
Potentially. But critically, and this ties back to the other points, this reasoning must be grounded in real-world experience and data. Just reasoning internally, like humans sometimes do, can lead you down blind alleys or reinforce biases.
Because our own intuition can be flawed.
Exactly. History is full of examples where our understanding was wrong until experiments showed otherwise. Grounding reasoning in environmental feedback is crucial for discovering actual truths and overturning incorrect assumptions.
This is where the concept of a world model comes in, right?
Yes. A world model is the AI's internal understanding of how the world works specifically, how its actions will affect the state of the world and the rewards it receives.
So it can predict consequences.
Right. The health agent might use its world model to predict. If I suggest going to the gym now, it might slightly increase fatigue today, negative reward, but likely improve cardiovascular metrics later, positive reward. It allows for planning based on cause and effect.
And this world model isn't static.
No, absolutely not. It's constantly being updated and refined based on the actual experiences the agent has. what it predicted versus what actually happened. This makes the planning increasingly accurate over time.
So planning and LLM-style reasoning aren't necessarily opposed, but planning needs that grounding.
Exactly. They can work together, but the experiential grounding is key for making the reasoning robust and connected to reality.
Okay, stepping back a bit, why is this shift to the era of experience happening now? Reinforcement learning isn't new.
True, RL has been around for decades with big successes in games, simulations, robotics, the era of simulation, you could call it.
Like AlphaGo, AlphaZero.
Right. But bridging the gap from those often well-defined simulations to the messy complexity and fuzzy rewards of the real world was always hard.
And then came the big language models.
Yes, the era of human data. Suddenly, we got amazing general competence just by scaling up models on vast internet text. It was incredibly effective.
But the paper argues something was lost in that shift.
It suggests that the focus on human data, while powerful, maybe de-emphasized the ability for agents to learn truly novel things beyond human knowledge, the kind of creative strategies AlphaZero discovered in Go, for instance. RL based purely on human preference, RLHF, doesn't necessarily encourage that kind of exploration.
So the era of experience is about bringing those two things together, general abilities and self-discovery.
That's the vision. Combining the breadth of LLMs with the depth of experiential reinforcement learning grounded in reality. The AMLers, they argue, are now falling into place. More autonomous agents, better ways to handle real-world actions and observations, more flexible reward systems, and powerful RL techniques.
The pieces are coming together.
The paper strongly suggests the transition is imminent. It feels like a return to some core RL principles, but updated for this new context.
What about those RL principles? Did the focus on LLMs and human data maybe sideline some important RL concepts?
The paper hints at that, yeah. Concepts like value functions for long-term planning, efficient exploration of the world, building rounded world models, handling long streams of data, these are all classic RL ideas. The human-centric approach, especially RLHF, sometimes bypassed these or used simpler versions because the human provided so much prior knowledge.
Kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, maybe.
Perhaps in some ways, yeah. By focusing so much on imitating human judgment, we might have limited AI to human-level performance in some domains, and maybe neglected RL techniques better suited for autonomous interaction and discovery.
So there's an opportunity now to revisit and improve those core RL ideas for this new era.
Absolutely. Thinking about reward functions based on grounded signals, value functions over lifelong streams, safe and efficient real-world exploration, truly predictive world models. Adapting and advancing these RL foundations is probably key to unlocking the potential they describe.
Okay, let's talk consequences. If this era of experience takes hold, what does the future look like according to the paper?
Well, the potential upside is huge. They envision profoundly different capabilities.
My.
On a daily level, maybe truly personalized assistance for health, education, work, that really understand our long-term context and needs because they learn alongside us.
That sounds genuinely useful.
But the really transformative impact the paper suggests could be in science. AI agents autonomously designing and running experiments, analyzing complex data, potentially accelerating discovery in medicine, material science, climate solutions, you name it, at an unprecedented rate.
Wow, that's a big claim.
It is, but it flows logically from the idea of AI learning directly from interaction with the world or complex simulations of it.
Of course, with big potential comes big challenges.
Definitely. And the paper is clear about that, too. There are significant and perhaps novel challenges.
Such as?
Obvious ones like potential job displacement as AI takes on more complex cognitive tasks previously done by humans. The very idea of agents developing skills like long-term planning and innovation raises fundamental questions.
And safety. Misuse.
That's a major one. Agents acting autonomously over long periods in potentially complex environments. It means fewer points for direct human oversight compared to, say, current chatbots. That inherently increases risks if things go wrong or if the AI is used maliciously.
And if they start reasoning in non-human ways, understanding why they do things could get harder.
Exactly. Interpretability could become a much bigger challenge if AI moves significantly beyond human modes of thought.
But interestingly, the paper also suggests some potential safety benefits from this approach. That seems counterintuitive at first.
It does, but there's a logic to it. Because these agents are constantly learning from their environment, they might be inherently more adaptable and aware. Well, they might notice if their sensors are malfunctioning, or if the societal context changes, or if a new scientific discovery makes their old approach obsolete, things a static model wouldn't necessarily pick up on. They could potentially even learn to recognize and adapt to human distress signals within their interaction stream.
And the reward system.
Because the rewards are grounded and the reward function itself can be adapted over time based on outcomes and feedback, it offers a way to potentially correct misalignment. If an AI is optimizing for the wrong real-world metric, the classic paperclip maximizer problem, a grounded reward system potentially allows for that to be detected and adjusted based on observing the unwanted consequences.
And one more point about safety.
Yeah, the real world itself can act as a brake. Unlike pure computation, which can happen incredibly fast, interacting with the physical world takes time. Running experiments, waiting for clinical trial results, building prototypes. These things impose natural limits on how quickly an AI can iterate and improve in many domains.
So, okay, to wrap up, the core message here is that AI might be moving into a new phase, the era of experience, shifting away from just learning from human data dumps towards learning through direct, continuous interaction with the world.
Right. It's a move towards more autonomous, grounded learning with the potential to exceed human capabilities by generating its own knowledge.
But it brings both incredible possibilities, especially in areas like science, and also really significant challenges around safety, control, and societal impact.
Exactly. It's a vision of a powerful but also complex future for AI.
Definitely a lot to think about. So, a final thought for our listeners, building on this. If AI starts learning primarily from direct experience, which fields currently dominated by human expertise do you think will be transformed most quickly or most profoundly? And what kind of societal adaptations might we need to start considering now to navigate that transition? Something to chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.